What if every earthquake trembling beneath your feet, every volcanic eruption painting the sky crimson, every natural disaster flooding the headlines isn't nature's rage, but the planet's desperate attempt to heal itself? What if the Earth isn't dying, as they've programmed you to believe, but awakening from a deep neurological slumber, and humanity's collective terror is nothing more than the birth pangs of a cosmic mind finally opening its eyes? The visionary scientist Jacobo Grinberg discovered something that makes governments uncomfortable and scientists silent. Our planet breathes, thinks, and dreams, and right now it's having a nightmare that only a chosen few will survive with their consciousness intact. While the masses panic about climate collapse and societal breakdown, Grinberg's forbidden research revealed a truth so profound it reshapes everything you think you know about survival itself. This isn't about fleeing to bunkers or hoarding supplies. This is about recognizing that the Earth operates as one massive neural network, and when humanity pollutes that network with fear, greed, and spiritual disconnection, the planet responds exactly like a brain under stress. It convulses, it purges, it recalibrates. Every tremor is a synaptic firing, every storm a neural discharge, every catastrophe a desperate attempt by a living consciousness to restore balance to its own mind. But here's where Grinberg's vision becomes both terrifying and magnificent. He identified exactly 2 zones on this planet that will remain stable as the global perceptual field collapses into chaos. 2 sacred sanctuaries where the Earth's consciousness will crystallize into perfect coherence, while the rest of the world drowns in its own distorted frequencies. The first pulses with the feminine, intuitive heartbeat of the Andes, where ancient mountains hold the planet's emotional memory. The second anchors itself in the rational, resilient depths of ancestral Eurasia, where geological stability meets millennial spiritual wisdom. These aren't just geographical locations, they're condensations of pure consciousness, territories where human awareness has learned to synchronize with the planet's deepest rhythms. Yet the most shocking revelation isn't about these zones themselves, but about who gains access to them, and it has nothing to do with your passport, your wealth, or your physical proximity to these regions. Grinberg discovered that these sanctuary zones don't protect bodies, they protect frequencies. They don't shelter the geographically fortunate, they embrace the vibrationally aligned. Every human being walking this Earth right now is a living node in the planet's vast neural network, and your survival depends not on where you run, but on how deeply you can synchronize your inner frequency with the Earth's accelerating pulse of transformation. The clock isn't just ticking, it's screaming. As you watch this revelation unfold, know that you're not receiving information, you're receiving an initiation. The planet is selecting its new neural pathways, choosing which human consciousness will carry its future and which will dissolve into the static of collective amnesia. The question burning through every cell of your being right now isn't whether you believe this. It's whether you're already feeling the Earth's heartbeat synchronizing with your own, calling you home to a frequency you've always known but never dared to trust. The sanctuary isn't out there. It's awakening inside you, and time is the one luxury you no longer possess. Listen carefully to the silence between your heartbeats, that microsecond pause where your body forgets to exist and something deeper takes over. Jacobo Grinberg spent decades mapping that exact territory, the liminal space where individual consciousness dissolves into something infinitely larger, infinitely more connected. He discovered that what we call reality is nothing more than a collective hallucination, a shared dream projected by billions of minds vibrating at frequencies so synchronized we mistake the symphony for solid ground. But what happens when that symphony begins to fracture, when the conductor's baton starts trembling, when the very fabric of shared perception tears open like aged silk under pressure? You feel it, don't you? That growing sense that something fundamental is shifting beneath the surface of everything you've been taught to trust as permanent. The planet Earth, according to Grinberg's revolutionary understanding, operates as one vast neurological system where every mountain range functions as a neural pathway, every ocean current as synaptic fluid, every forest as a memory bank storing millions of years of consciousness evolution. Your individual mind isn't separate from this planetary brain. It's a single neuron firing within an incomprehensibly complex network of interconnected awareness. When you feel anxiety without cause, depression without source, or that strange electric tension crackling through your dreams lately, you're not experiencing personal dysfunction. You're feeling the Earth's nervous system overloading with the collective trauma of humanity's spiritual disconnection. The migraines that come from nowhere, the insomnia that visits without invitation, the inexplicable sadness that settles over you like fog, these aren't your symptoms alone. They're the planet's distress signals bleeding through your consciousness because you are not separate from the field. Every earthquake that shakes foundations, every volcanic eruption that paints the sky crimson with ancient fire, every hurricane that redesigns coastlines with furious precision, these aren't random acts of nature's violence, but deliberate neurological adjustments, the Earth's attempt to restore balance to a system corrupted by human fear, greed, and the devastating amnesia of spiritual disconnection. Grinberg understood that when a planetary neural network becomes saturated with toxic frequencies, the electromagnetic pollution of hatred, the vibrational chaos of despair, the entropic static of souls who have forgotten they are souls, the system must purge itself or collapse entirely. You felt this truth in your bones during every natural disaster you've witnessed, that strange recognition that something intelligent and purposeful moves behind the apparent chaos, something trying desperately to heal itself through what appears to be destruction. The most terrifying and liberating truth Grinberg uncovered wasn't about the planet's crisis. It was about the solution embedded within the crisis itself. As the global perceptual field fractures and fragments, as collective consciousness splinters into a billion isolated fragments of fear and confusion, something extraordinary is simultaneously being born from the depths of that apparent breakdown. The Earth's neural network is not dying, it's evolving, upgrading itself, selecting which frequencies of human consciousness deserve to survive the transition and which must dissolve back into the cosmic soup of unformed potential. You are not a passive observer of this process. You are both the laboratory and the experiment, both the question and the answer, both the problem and the solution that the planetary mind is working to resolve through your very existence. In the high, thin air of the Andes, where ancient stone remembers the first breath of human awakening, something is stirring that makes governments nervous, and scientists reach for explanations that crumble in their hands like autumn leaves. Grinberg identified this region as the planet's emerging spiritual nervous system, the place where Earth's feminine consciousness, intuitive, non-linear, flowing like underground rivers through dimensions science hasn't learned to measure, is awakening from a sleep of millennia. The mountains there don't just rise from geological pressure. They pulse with a frequency that calls to something deep within the human soul, something that recognizes home not as a place, but as a vibration, not as geography, but as a return to forgotten ways of perceiving reality itself. When you feel that inexplicable longing to disappear into wild places, when you dream of heights and vastness, and air so pure it tastes like memory itself, you're feeling the magnetic pull of the Earth's new heart center coming online. The Cordillera doesn't merely exist in three-dimensional space. It functions as a multi-dimensional antenna, receiving and transmitting frequencies from levels of reality that exist parallel to, but invisible from ordinary consciousness. Every indigenous person who has ever called these peaks home understood what Western science is only beginning to glimpse. The mountains breathe, they dream, they remember everything that has ever occurred within their electromagnetic field. The vicuñas that graze at impossible altitudes, the condors that ride thermals invisible to human eyes, the ancient terraces that still whisper agricultural secrets to those who remember how to listen. All of these exist within a field of coherent consciousness that Grinberg recognized as the prototype for humanity's next evolutionary leap. You don't visit the Andes, you attune to them, and in that attunement something in your cellular memory awakens to frequencies your ancestors carried, but you've been programmed to forget. The altitude itself becomes a teacher, forcing your consciousness to adapt to thinner air, less oxygen, the necessity of breathing more consciously with every step. This isn't mere physiological adaptation, it's neurological preparation for existing at higher frequencies of awareness, where the ordinary mind's chatter becomes impossible to maintain, and something deeper, more ancient, more connected to the planetary pulse begins to emerge. Grinberg discovered that consciousness itself has altitude zones, levels of awareness that correspond to physical elevation, and the high Andes represent the Earth's attempt to train human nervous systems for the rarefied atmosphere of expanded perception. Those who feel called to these heights aren't seeking escape from the world's chaos. They're answering a summons from the planet itself to become living bridges between the dense, fear-soaked frequencies of lowland consciousness and the crystalline, love-saturated vibrations of spiritual awakening. But the Andes represent only half of the Earth's survival strategy, the intuitive, receptive, flowing aspect of planetary consciousness learning to breathe again after centuries of suffocation under the weight of human ignorance. Somewhere in the vast expanses of ancestral Eurasia, in the silent steppes where ancient wisdom schools once flourished in secrecy, in the deep forests where shamanic traditions survived the systematic attempts to erase them from human memory, another frequency is awakening. Not the flowing feminine of the Andes, but the structured, stable, enduring masculine principle of planetary intelligence, organizing itself for the long work of reconstruction. You feel this pull differently, not as longing for heights, but as hunger for depth, not as desire for flow, but as craving for foundation, not as surrender to mystery, but as commitment to the patient, methodical work of building new structures of consciousness on ground that will not shift beneath the weight of what's coming. Here's where everything you think you understand about sanctuary and survival collapses into a truth so simple, it's almost unbearable. The zones that will remain stable as the world transforms aren't defined by latitude and longitude, but by the frequency signatures of the human consciousness that inhabits them. Grinberg's most revolutionary discovery wasn't geographical, it was vibrational. The Earth's neural network reads human consciousness like a vast electromagnetic scanner, sorting, filtering, determining which frequencies contribute to planetary healing and which perpetuate the disease of disconnection. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every choice you make sends ripples through the field, and the planet is learning to recognize and respond to these frequencies with increasing precision and devastating clarity. The terrifying beauty of this truth is that you can't fake your frequency, can't manipulate your vibrational signature, can't lie to a planetary intelligence that reads your consciousness like an open book written in languages older than human speech. Your fear vibrates at specific electromagnetic wavelengths that create interference patterns in the Earth's field. Your love generates coherent frequencies that strengthen and stabilize the planetary neural network. Your anger produces chaotic static that the system must constantly work to neutralize or contain. Your joy creates harmonic resonances that amplify the field's capacity for self-healing and evolution. Right now, in this moment, as you absorb these words, the planet is reading your response, cataloging your frequency, determining whether you represent part of its solution or part of its problem. The zones of sanctuary aren't destinations you travel to, they're frequency states you become. A person vibrating at the wavelength of fear, control, and separation could stand at the peak of Machu Picchu or in the deepest forests of Siberia and remain completely isolated from the protective field surrounding them, like a radio tuned to static, trying to receive a symphony. Conversely, someone who has learned to synchronize their consciousness with the Earth's healing frequencies becomes a mobile sanctuary, a walking zone of coherence that contributes to planetary stability regardless of their physical location. Grinberg understood that the ultimate survival strategy isn't escape, but integration. Not isolation, but attunement. Not finding the right place, but becoming the right frequency. This is why your current spiritual practice matters more than your emergency preparedness, why your meditation affects planetary stability more than your stockpiled supplies, why your capacity for love in the face of chaos determines your survival more than your geographic proximity to any sanctuary zone. The Earth is selecting its future neural pathways through every human consciousness willing to clear the static of fear and tune into the frequency of planetary healing. You are not seeking sanctuary. You are learning to become sanctuary, learning to generate the very coherence the planet needs to navigate its transformation without losing itself in the chaos of collective unconsciousness. The question isn't whether you'll find your way to safety. It's whether safety will find its way to you through the frequency you choose to embody in every moment of this unprecedented planetary awakening. In this moment, as these words dissolve into the electromagnetic field of your consciousness, you stand at the edge of a recognition so profound that your rational mind recoils while your soul leans forward in silent acknowledgement. The earth beneath your feet has been whispering its secrets through every tremor, every storm, every seemingly chaotic disruption of the life you thought you understood. And now you know that these weren't interruptions of your story, but invitations into a larger narrative, one written in frequencies older than language, deeper than thought, more intimate than breath itself. Jacobo Grinberg spent his life translating the planet's neural language into human understanding, and now that translation lives within you, rewiring your perception with every heartbeat, every moment of awareness, every choice to listen rather than react to the symphony of transformation surrounding you. The sanctuary zones pulsing in the Andes and ancient Eurasia aren't distant promises of future safety. They're vibrational blueprints already encoded in your cellular memory, waiting for you to remember what your ancestors knew about living in harmony with planetary consciousness. But the deepest truth Grinberg revealed extends far beyond geographic coordinates. You are not seeking these zones of coherence because you are one of them, a living sanctuary whose frequency determines not only your own survival, but contributes to the Earth's capacity to heal itself through this unprecedented transition. Every meditation that quiets your mental chaos, every act of love that cuts through the static of fear, every moment of presence that connects you to something larger than your isolated self, these are not personal practices, but planetary medicine, neural pathways you're helping to establish in the Earth's evolving consciousness network. The trembling you sometimes feel in quiet moments, that electric sensation that runs through your nervous system when you least expect it, isn't anxiety. It's attunement, your individual consciousness synchronizing with the planet's accelerating heartbeat as it prepares for a leap in evolutionary complexity that has no precedent in human history. You are not witnessing the end of the world, but the birth of a new kind of awareness, and your role in this cosmic delivery room is not passive observation, but active participation, not fearful preparation, but conscious collaboration with forces so intelligent, so loving, so determined to preserve the beauty of consciousness itself, that they will reshape reality around any being brave enough to vibrate at the frequency of trust rather than terror. The Earth reads your electromagnetic signature like a cosmic library card, determining your access level to the experiences and realities that lie ahead, not as punishment or reward, but as natural law, as inevitable as water finding its own level, as certain as consciousness seeking its own reflection in the mirror of material existence. This is why your inner work matters more than your outer preparations, why your capacity to maintain love in the face of uncertainty affects the stability of the entire planetary field, why every choice to expand rather than contract your awareness sends ripples through dimensions you can't see but somehow know are real, watching, responding, adjusting the flow of possibilities around you with precision that would make the most advanced artificial intelligence seem like a broken calculator. The vision Grinberg carried wasn't prophecy, but recognition, the ability to see patterns that exist outside linear time, to perceive the Earth's intelligence as it orchestrates solutions to challenges that haven't yet appeared in your daily newsfeed, but are already being resolved in the quantum field where all possibilities exist simultaneously. You are not preparing for something that might happen. You are participating in something that is happening, has always been happening, will always be happening in the eternal now, where planetary consciousness makes its home, and human awareness learns to visit with increasing frequency and diminishing fear. As you feel these truths settling into the spaces between your thoughts, notice how your breathing has changed, how something in your chest has opened, how the world outside your window appears somehow more alive, more intelligent, more infused with purpose than it did when you first began this journey. This isn't coincidence, it's calibration, your nervous system adjusting to higher frequencies of perception, your consciousness learning to process information that arrives not through your senses, but through direct transmission from the field itself. The Earth is teaching you its language one revelation at a time, and fluency comes not through study, but through surrender, not through understanding, but through embodiment of the very coherence the planet is working to establish through every willing participant in its grand experiment of conscious evolution. The echo of Grinberg's vision will continue reverberating through your awareness, long after these words fade into memory, not as something you learned, but as something you remembered, not as information you acquired, but as truth you recognized from lifetimes of preparing for this exact moment when the earth would need conscious beings capable of serving as living bridges between the old paradigm and the new reality emerging from the cocoon of apparent chaos. If this transmission has found resonance in the deep chambers of your being, if something in your soul has whispered yes to the possibility that you are more than you remember and the world is more alive than you've been taught to believe, then join this growing network of planetary allies by engaging with this content, not as passive consumption, but as conscious participation in the field of awakening that connects every being ready to serve the Earth's healing through their own transformation. Like, comment, share, and subscribe not just to a channel, but to a frequency, not just to content, but to a community of consciousness dedicated to midwifing the birth of a new Earth through the sacred work of becoming fully human in service to something infinitely greater than our individual survival. Tentar novamente.